First, you showed it. I find it.
How many have you indicted?
Excuse me. I'm going to answer the question.
Answer my question.
No, I'm going to answer the question the way I want to answer the question.
No,
Your
you're going to answer
theatrics
the
are
question the
ridiculous.
way I asked it.
Chairman Jordan, I'm not going to get in the gutter with these people, but I'm going to answer the question.
How many have you indicted?
Again, the time belongs to
Reclaiming my time.
The time belongs.
I think it's very interesting.
Reclaiming my time.
I think it's very interesting.
And you can
that
reclaim
he
your
talks
time,
about
but
they
reclaiming my time,
indicted.
Mr.
The
Chairman.
president said they
Close the
indicted
clock.
him twice.
Mr. Chairman, please stop the clock and stop the clock and restore his time.
Okay, here we go with these
Committee will be in order.
theatrics.
The time belongs to the
and
gentleman
yield
from
back
New
the clock,
York.
please.
We will give you a few more seconds. We will do that. But when
Reclaiming
you ask
my-
a question, the witness
question
gets to
was-
answer. You may not like the answer, but she
Right.
gets to
The
answer.
question was, how many of Epstein's...
They don't like
Que-
the answer,
Reclaiming
Chairman,
my time.
because it's honest.
Reclaiming
So
my-
he asked a
Reclaiming my
4-minute
time.
question.
Restore 45
and
seconds to
I am
Mr. Nadler,
going
please,
to
Mr. Chairman.
My time.
Answer.
You can let her filibuster all day long, but not on our watch.
Reclaiming-
Not on our time. No way.
Reclaiming-
And I told you about that, Attorney General, before you started.
You don't tell me
Yeah, oh, I
anything,
did tell you because we
washed
saw
up
what you did in the
loser
Senate.
Lawyer.
All right, before we dive in, you need to see just how fast this hearing spirals out of control. Because what you just saw in that cold open wasn't a minor disagreement. That was the moment the walls closed in. Today's video is about a clash that was guaranteed to combust. Congressman Jerry Nadler pressing Trump aligned Attorney General Pam Bondi on why the Department of Justice appears eager to chase political enemies while refusing to indict a single Epstein co-conspirator. And look, hearings get tense all the time. But this one? This is different. From the very start, you can feel the friction. Nadler enters with a binder full of specifics, dates, internal DOJ actions, and actual grand jury outcomes. He's not speculating. He's pulling receipts. And Bondi walks in with a rehearsed counter-narrative and a chip on her shoulder the size of a courtroom bench, and that combination creates a meltdown on the record. Watch what happens today. Bondi refuses to answer a direct question. Nadler snaps back and refuses to surrender control of his time. The chairman tries to mediate, but the room's already boiling. And Bondi, instead of diffusing anything, throws gasoline on the fire by attacking Nadler personally, questioning his legal background, and almost daring him to push harder. This is exactly the type of moment where you see who can stay grounded in facts and who gets rattled the minute the questions get specific. But let's start from the top, because to understand why this confrontation lands so hard, you have to see the buildup Nadler constructs. It's methodical. It's loaded. And it puts Bondi in a corner she cannot power her way out of.
Mr. Chairman, I want to begin by acknowledging the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's horrific abuse who are in the room with us today. I want to thank all of you for your bravery in speaking out. I want to say that you and the other survivors of these heinous crimes deserve better from this Department of Justice. In particular, it is shocking that the department did not redact the names of Epstein's victims, but it did redact the names of their abusers. I don't know whether this was done out of incompetence or whether it was deliberate and malicious, but either way, it is completely unacceptable. Even more troubling, the DOJ has failed to bring any of these perpetrators to justice. Instead, it has engaged in a relentless pursuit of Donald Trump's perceived enemies. I want to focus on just one example. The Attorney General of my home state of New York, Tish James. This DOJ has been hell-bent on securing an indictment against Ms. James for something, anything, simply because she held Donald Trump's companies accountable for years of financial fraud. And indeed, the department manufactured an investigation against her for alleged, quote, mortgage fraud. But the U.S. attorney leading the investigation, Eric Siebert, a Trump appointee, refused to bring charges against Ms. James because there was simply no evidence. Unfortunately, a prosecutor who refuses to do Trump's bidding has no place in this DOJ, so Mr. Siebert was forced out. Trump could not contain his fury that he expressed to you in a social media post addressed to you by name. I'm sure you've seen it. Quote, I fired him and there is a great case, he wrote to you about Mr. Siebert. Then we moved down. We can't delay any longer. It's killing our reputation and credibility. They impeached me twice and indicted me 5 times over nothing. Justice must be served now. And obviously, you followed that order. Lindsay Halligan, Trump's former defense lawyer who had never prosecuted a case in her life, was installed to replace Mr. Siebert and it was clear that part of her mandate was to go after Miss James. Halligan immediately sought an indictment, which the court dismissed because Halligan was illegally put into the role. But your department was undeterred, and not once, but twice, it tried to indict Attorney General James in separate courts. Both grand juries rejected you and refused to indict her. It is practically unheard of for a grand jury to refuse an indictment. In 2016, it happened in just 6 cases out of over 150,000 offenses. And you had it happen twice in the same week, in 2 different courts. That must have been humiliating. And now there are reports that you are continuing to investigate her. The amount of resources that have gone into targeting Attorney General James, months of investigations, multiple failed indictments, is astounding. Since your own prosecutors told you that there is not enough evidence to support a conviction, it's clear that you were going after her simply because she held President Trump accountable and he wants to punish her. And she is just one name on a long list of Trump political enemies that DOJ is reportedly targeting. From Jerome Powell and Lisa Cook at the Federal Reserve to James Comey, numerous Democratic members of Congress, John Brennan, Jack Smith, Democratic officials in Minnesota, Chris Krebs, Miles Taylors, and more. And those are just the ones we know about. In contrast to these politically motivated investigations, grasping at something they can charge their enemies with, we now have concrete evidence of disgusting criminality revealed in the Epstein files. So I really have just one question for you. How many of Epstein's co-conspirators have you indicted? How many perpetrators are you even investigating?
Okay, that was a masterclass in pressure building. Look at how Nadler structures that entire sequence. He doesn't rush. He doesn't detour. He lays out a timeline so tight Bondi has nowhere to wiggle. And listen to his tone. He's not shouting. He's not improvising. He's walking through a prosecutorial argument step by step, and every sentence narrows the room Bondi has to maneuver in. Let's break down the strategy here, because this is where momentum shifts. First, he invokes the Epstein survivors sitting in the room. That isn't just symbolic, it instantly reframes the hearing around real harm and real stakes. He's anchoring the moral high ground from the opening sentence and making any deflection look callous. Then, he hits the DOJ where it's already vulnerable. They failed to redact victims' names. They did redact abusers' names. They haven't indicted a single co-conspirator. These aren't opinions. These are documented failures. And once he establishes that pattern, he moves directly into what he believes is the political motive behind it. This part is crucial. Nadler doesn't claim vague corruption. He names the specific case, the DOJ pursued investigation targeting New York Attorney General Tish James. He cites the Trump-appointed prosecutor who refused to file charges because there was no evidence. He cites that prosecutor getting pushed out. He cites Trump's own words attacking the prosecutor in a public post addressed to Bondi by name. Pay attention to that. That's why Bondi starts cracking later. Nadler isn't just accusing her. He's quoting her boss telling her to push an indictment that prosecutors said had no basis. Then, Nadler hits the most humiliating piece. 2 different grand juries in 2 different courts refused to indict Tish James. That's almost unheard of. He even cites the statistic, 6 out of 150,000 cases in 2016. He's establishing that this wasn't bad luck. It was a political hit job that collapsed twice. And Bondi knows that looks terrible. Because immediately after that, Nadler brings it back to the core question, the one Bondi desperately does not want to answer. How many Epstein co-conspirators has the DOJ indicted under her leadership? He's setting a trap. Her entire political narrative is that she's delivering justice, restoring order, exposing wrongdoing. But the one case with real documented abusers, the one issue with bipartisan outrage, she hasn't brought a single charge. The moment he asks, the tension spikes. You saw Bondi start interrupting, trying to filibuster, trying to redefine the question on her terms. That's not confidence. That's panic wrapped in bravado. Watch her body language. Watch her posture. She doesn't lean into the evidence. She leans into deflection, mocking, scolding, invoking Trump's impeachments. That's a politician losing control, not a prosecutor calmly explaining her work. And Nadler, he doesn't let her move an inch. His tone stays rigid and controlled, which only makes her outbursts look more frantic. That's why the chairman has to step in twice. The volume rises, the interruptions pile up, and the entire conversation becomes a tug of war over who controls the mic. This is the moment the hearing flips from tense to chaotic. But it's nothing compared to what you're about to see in the next clip, because this is where Bondi tries to regain footing and absolutely faceplants. Let's roll the second major section.
First, you showed it. I find it.
How many have you indicted?
Excuse me. I'm going to answer the question.
Answer my question.
No, I'm going to answer the question the way I want to answer the question.
No,
Your
you're going to answer
theatrics
the
are
question the way I
ridiculous.
asked it.
Chairman
How many have you
Jordan, I'm not
indicted?
going to get in the gutter with these people,
How many
but
have you-
I'm going to answer the question.
How many have you indicted?
Again, the time belongs to
Reclaiming my time.
the time belongs.
I think it's very
Reclaiming
interesting.
my time.
I think it's very
Reclaiming my time.
interesting.
You can
that
reclaim
he
your
talks
time,
about they
reclaiming my time,
indicted.
Mr.
The
Chairman.
president said they
Close the
indicted
clock.
him
Mr.
twice.
Chairman, please
They
stop the
sure
clock
did.
and
And
stop
he
the clock and
indicted-
restore his time.
Okay, here we go with these
Committee will be in order.
theatrics.
The time
Reclaiming my
belongs
time
to the
and
gentleman
reel back
from
the
New
clock,
York.
please.
We will give you a few more seconds. We will do that. But when
Reclaiming
you ask
my-
a question, the witness
question
gets to
was-
answer. You may not like the answer, but she
Right.
gets to
The
answer.
question was, how many of Epstein's...
They don't like
Que-
the answer,
Reclaiming
Chairman,
my time.
because it's honest.
Reclaiming
So
my-
he asked a
Reclaiming my
4-minute
time.
question.
Restore 45
and
seconds to
I am
Mr. Nadler,
going
please,
to
Mr. Chairman.
I mean,
Answer.
You can let her filibuster all day long, but not on our watch.
Reclaiming-
Not on our time. No way.
Reclaiming-
And I told you about that, Attorney General, before you started.
You don't tell me
Yeah, oh, I
anything,
did tell you because we
washed
saw
up
what you did in the
loser
Senate.
Lawyer, not even a lawyer.
Committee will be in order.
Time, and I should get back at least 45 seconds.
We will give you a few more seconds. I
Not a
said that
few more,
already.
45 seconds.
Okay, I'm timing right now, Mr. Nadler. Go
All
right
right.
Reclaiming my time. The answer to my question, how many of Epstein's co-conspirators has she indicted, is 0. You have been the Attorney General for a whole year, and your DOJ fired the lead prosecutor of this case, sat on evidence this entire time, and claimed falsely last July that there were no more leads. It took an act of Congress for you to finally release part of the Epstein files, and when you did, you included personal information about the victims while protecting the names of abusers.
Time of the gentleman
None of
has
the perpetrators
expired.
have been brought to justice, but enormous resources
Time
have been
of the
dedicated to
gentleman has
pursuing Trump's
expired,
enemies.
and
It's
obviously
clear
there
that
was-
under your leadership, the Department of Justice
There
no
was
longer
no
works for
question
American
in there
people. It works
for her to
for
respond
Donald
to.
Trump. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back.
May I answer?
I think our next questioner, Madam Attorney General, is going to give you time to respond to
Thank you, Chairman.
all kinds of things. So we will turn to the gentleman from Texas for 5 minutes.
Ms. Bondi, you go right ahead. I'm over here. The time is yours.
Thank you. First, he brought up the president saying they indicted me twice. They sure did. They tried to impeach him twice. And you, Mr. Nadler, were one of the leads on the impeachment. I was on the other side. I lived that with you. During impeachment, you said the president conspired, sought foreign interference in the 2016 election. Robert Mueller found no evidence, none, of foreign interference in 2016. Have you apologized to President Trump? Have you apologized to President Trump, all of you who participated in those impeachment hearings against Donald Trump? You all should be apologizing. You sit here and you attack the president, and I am not going to have it. I'm not going to put up with it. You know, all they want to do, the American people need to know this. They are talking about Epstein today. This has been around since the Obama administration. This administration released over 3 million pages of documents, over 3 million, and Donald Trump signed that law to release all of those documents. He is the most transparent president in the nation's history. And none of them asked Merrick Garland over the last 4 years one word about Jeffrey Epstein. How ironic is that? You know why? Because Donald Trump, the Dow right now is over, the Dow is over $50,000. I don't know why you're laughing. You're a great stock trader, as I hear, Raskin. The Dow is over 50,000 right now. The S&P at almost 7,000. And the NASDAQ smashing records. Americans' 401ks and retirement savings are booming. That's what we should be talking about. We should be talking about making Americans safe. We should be talking about, what does a Dow have to do with anything? That's what they just asked. Are you kidding?
Mr. Jordan, Mr. Jordan,
Committee will be in order.
Mr. Jordan, am I going to get an extra 45 seconds added to my time?
The committee will be in order. The time belongs to the gentleman from Texas. Ms. Bondi, the Attorney General can respond.
Thank you. The Dow has shattered 50,000 for the first time. This is crazy. They said it couldn't be done in 4 years, yet President Trump has done it in 1 year. National median rents have fallen to a 4-year low thanks to Donald Trump. That's why they want to focus on Epstein and our most transparent president in the nation's history. The murder rate, as I said, has plummeted to a 125-year low thanks to Donald Trump. For an unprecedented 9 straight months, there were 0 illegal border crossings at the southern border. That's what we should be focused on. All the great work that this president has done and will continue to do to keep America safe and to make Americans safe.
Thank you, Attorney General Bondi. I agree with you totally. I think you've done a fine job. I think that Democrats, in fact, should be apologizing to the Epstein victims for doing nothing during the 4 years that they were running the government. We did not hear about this, and it took you and President Trump to finally provide transparency and give answers to the American people, and I want to thank you for that. I want to thank you also for standing up for truth today and for fighting back against the theatrics and the time waste that you will endure over the next hour or two. I want to apologize on behalf of my colleagues on the left. They're not all that bad, but they've got to put on a show. And I'm sorry that you have to go through that. And I would like to yield the last, I'd say 40, even 40 is 80 seconds. The clock says 40, but I've got 80 seconds since I was so rudely interrupted, and I'll give all 80 seconds to Chairman Jordan.
And I would just yield to the Attorney General if she has anything to add.
I'm fine to continue. Thank you, Chairman.
All right, the chair now recognizes, the gentleman yields back, the chair recognizes.
That stretch tells you everything about who had momentum and who was scrambling to rewrite the script. Let's walk through the turning points one by one. First, Bondi's refusal to answer the core question speaks louder than anything she actually says. Nadler asks multiple times, "How many Epstein co-conspirators have you indicted?" She never answers. Not once. Even when Nadler states the answer, 0, she doesn't dispute it. Instead, she goes straight for personal attacks. She tells Nadler he's not even a lawyer, which is not only false, but also a massive tell that she's run out of substance. You know someone's losing when they abandon evidence and start swinging at credentials. Then she pivots into a partisan monologue about Trump's impeachments, the stock market, border crossings, inflation numbers. Anything but Epstein and anything but the failed indictments she was confronted with. Ask yourself, if she had a real answer, why spend minutes talking about the Dow? This wasn't a coherent defense. It was a smoke grenade, an attempt to overwhelm the room with unrelated talking points so no one notices she hasn't addressed the core allegation. The DOJ under her leadership spent months targeting political rivals but did not indict a single Epstein abuser. And what's wild is how transparent the deflection becomes. She says Democrats never asked Merrick Garland about Epstein, which has nothing to do with why her team redacted victims' names and protected abusers' names. She says Trump is the most transparent president in history, which has nothing to do with why 2 grand juries refused to indict Tish James. She brags about the stock market, which has nothing to do with why the DOJ fired a prosecutor who wouldn't fabricate charges. This is what it looks like when someone has no answer and hopes volume will replace clarity. And when she finishes, the Texas congressman swoops in to do cleanup on aisle 5, praising her, apologizing for Democrats, doubling down on partisan spin, and using the last minute of his time as a kind of pep rally for her. That isn't the behavior of a side that feels confident. It's the behavior of a side trying to recover from a blow. The real inflection point is this. Nadler's questioning boxed her into a corner where the only honest answer, 0 indictments, would expose an entire year of political targeting. She couldn't say it. She couldn't defend it. And she couldn't escape it. So she did what officials do when they're cornered. She attacked the questioner, changed the subject, and tried to frame the entire exchange as theatrics. But viewers saw what happened. She lost control. Nadler kept control. And the footage speaks for itself. Now, let's pull back for a moment and talk about why this particular clash matters beyond the hearing room. This wasn't just a heated argument. It was a referendum on whether the Department of Justice is operating under legal standards or political orders. Nadler's argument was simple. A politically sensitive target with no evidence was pursued aggressively. A globally notorious sex trafficking operation with actual abusers hasn't produced a single indictment. And internal resistance to politically motivated charges resulted in firings. Bondi never refuted a single element of that timeline. Instead, she retreated into pre-written talking points designed to protect Trump, not the integrity of the DOJ. That's why this hearing resonated. It unmasked the gap between Bondi's law and order branding and the actual record of the department she runs. You don't have to take Nadler's word for it. You don't have to take Bondi's word for it. The footage shows you exactly who had the facts and who had the slogans. And in a congressional hearing, under oath, real answers matter. When the pressure was on, when the question was specific, when the evidence was laid out in chronological detail, Bondi didn't rise to meet the facts. She scrambled to outrun them. And today's breakdown shows that in real time. That's why this exchange is going viral. Not because of the yelling, but because of what the yelling covers up. If you watched closely, you saw the moment everything flipped, and you saw who walked in prepared and who walked in performing. If you want more breakdowns like this where powerful people get pressed on the record, hit subscribe and drop your take in the comments. Who do you think came out stronger in this hearing? And what was the one moment that changed the whole exchange?